All right, so this is my demo for my final project. It is a physics engine, very simple one, just with circles and rectangles. I have two types of entities, static ones like the floor in this middle circle here, and then the other are physics entities, that's what I call them at least, and they're what have actual movement and react to the environment. So if I click somewhere, you can see how it reacts. It's not perfect, as you saw just there. Sometimes things do stick into each other and they don't work quite right, but so it's likely a math error somewhere in my algorithms, unfortunately. But yeah, so I can just click anywhere and things will spawn and you can see how they react to each other. I also haven't implemented rotation at all, but they do move, up, down, left, right, and what have you. In my main function here, if you can set this to true, and you'll be able to see the colliders, and they should turn red when there's a collision. You'll notice that my circles have a box around them, so I'm using axis-aligned bounding boxes to help simplify the collision detection. So I'm not doing too many complicated, checks everywhere. I'll only check if the circles are colliding with something, if the bounding boxes are also colliding with something, which is just a little performance help or performance boost. One thing to note for my collision detection, I'm using the visitor pattern. If I go to my axis aligned bounding box, for example, or actually, no, I'll go to the collider trait here. I have different collision detections depending on the type of collider that I'm dealing with, which in this case is either an axis aligned bounding box or a circle collider. And then kind of want to show off the physics side of things here too. So this is how my function for like applying what's it called, the force, the resolve force, I think, impulse resolution, and correction using position correction using linear projection here. One issue I encountered was in my when checking for collisions, right? I needed to check every entity with every other entity, and Rust didn't like that because it would check twice. So my solution here is to store my positional correction as well as my the force or the velocity that I'm adding to each physics object, and then applying that in a second for loop here. So potentially not the most performance solution, but it works within Rust and it works for me, so I'm content with that. I guess some other things to show off for textures to show everything off. I create textures and I keep them in a texture manager to kind of give easier access to things, so I can just pull it. So textures themselves are shared. I thought that it's kind of an optimization while also giving myself a little bit of a challenge in trying to deal with how Rust handles ownership. I can't have everything just share and mutate it. They all have to, it forces me to use a non-shared reference, or I guess a reference counter in this case is what I'm using to kind of share this. But yeah, that's kind of like the idea of my project there.